Good morning, everyone. This is your instructor, Sam Al-Khalili, or Sam Al-Khalili. I'm starting lesson 4 in your HTML handouts. As you notice in HTML handouts, lesson 4, that we're talking about the root folder again and the importance of naming your very first file or web page index.html or default.html. Not both of them, only one of them. And then we start talking about the Internet Protocol and Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP. So as you notice, the Internet Protocol has a 4 set of, let me show you, this is actually from the handouts that I gave you, has a 4 set of 256 digit number. That's 0 actually counts as the first digit. So 256 number. The 4th set of 256 numbers actually, this is an older technology. The newer technology is actually, it's coming through, but it still works. That indicates a web address is something. For instance, the 168.156.167.12 is IP address for Highline College, for the domain of Highline College, and that domain is actually, or that protocol has a multiple domain attached to it. Then we'll start talking about the domain names, and there are domain levels. There are top level domain names and there are lower level domain names. So some of the top level domain names, you're probably aware of it. .com for commercial businesses, .edu for educational, like highline.edu, .org for organizational non-profit, and I'll share with you a new website I just created over the weekend, and it's called, I have it here somewhere. Let me open it here because I have it open in WordPress. It's called Arab Festival wa.org. This is based in Seattle. It's just brand new. I just did it over this weekend, and using the WordPress, and I'm just showing you it's actually .org. Anyways, so, and we have .net, networking, network organization. This was not a top level, now become a top level. Then .gov and .military or .mil. The lower domain levels are like .us, .uinfo, .biz. There's a lot of them, and there's more coming through. There's a new domain name concept. It has been introduced, but it's very expensive, extremely expensive. Like, instead of using .com, I can use .macy's. Then you have, whatever the subdomain, then .macy's, and this is, I think, it will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually do. I have not seen it quite a bit yet, but it has been introduced already. So once that has been more as a practice, I will let you know. Then the reason we're talking about this is into what we're going to be working with is actually the hyperlinks. There are multiple different types of hyperlinks, but we're going to be talking about 4 different types. The hyperlinks actually start with a protocol. Let me show you that again. I'm sorry. Which called hyperlink. Example here, which is A stands for active. Hyperlink reference. That's what href. I always have a tendency to change that to herf, which is wrong. It has to be href, hyperlink reference. Then here you put the destination. Where do you want to go? Whether a local file, an anchor link in the page, an email link, or an email protocol link, or an external link. Then after that, you put the destination name, whatever name you want to. It doesn't have to be the same name, and you close the action. So we're gonna show you that in detail how that's gonna work. But we're gonna start from the links within your page, then links within your website, then a link external, then you hyperlink. That's exactly how we're gonna be doing that. They're not actually hard. It just have to understand how they're gonna work. So the first thing we're gonna be working about is actually doing an anchor link. And the purpose we're gonna use those anchor links, let me give you an example. So right here you can see our page is a little bit longer than we normal, so we can actually create a bunch of links to those particular paragraphs for the page. So we can either anchor those links with an anchor name, or we can use the ID and give it a name to ID name for each headings. So there are two different ways of doing it. It depends on the program you are working with, like Expression Web or Dreamweaver or Blue Griffin or whatever. They have different ways of actually creating those anchor links. They could add an ID to an element, especially the headings or paragraph or div tags, or we can just add an anchor link name anywhere. So you may be confused. Let me show you those examples how we're gonna be doing that. So I'm gonna go back to my notepad here. I'm gonna go all the way up. So in order to create a link to an anchor or to an ID, I have to first place that anchor name where I want, wherever I wanted to, or just name that particular element ID. Give it the ID name or where so I can link to it. So first I'm gonna go ahead and add anchor names excuse me, to the following paragraphs. So for instance, about here, I'm gonna add an anchor name right in front of the headings, right in front of the headings. I can put it anywhere I want to, but I can put it in front of the headings. So it starts like a name. This is actually naming the anchor, equal quotation mark, and I'm gonna name this one about. Now remember the anchor name because we're gonna use it to anchor to it. So I'm gonna close this one right away. So we just created a name anchor. So what I usually do when I create an anchor, I test it right away. But since I'm giving you all that information, so you don't have to worry about it. So we just created an anchor for the about paragraph. To link to it, I'm gonna do this now. I know it's gonna be a little bit different than the book, but that's okay. Right below the paragraph name here, I'm gonna create a new paragraph. Then I come back to it, I'll change it. I'm gonna create a link to that anchor. As I said, has to be hyperlink reference. Now to link to an anchor is only to an anchor or an ID. Please do not do it to link to a page or external website. Please do not do that. We need a £, and I have to give it the exact same name and name that anchor, and this time it's gonna be about. Then here I'm gonna type whatever I want to show the text to actually link to it, and I'm gonna say about Washington State. We'll just Washington State, and then close that hyperlink. I have to close that hyperlink, otherwise the entire document could be a hyperlink, whatever it actually it ends. So this is the first link from about to that anchor. So I control save. So I'm gonna show you how it looks like. We're gonna go through various changes and to make it look the way we want it to. I'm gonna refresh it, and you'll see the anchor name is right here. You're not gonna be able to see it, and you know this will link to it, and it just linked to it, so it does work. Now I'm gonna create the rest of the stuff, then I come back and modify the first paragraph. So the next one, I'm gonna go down here. The next anchor I'm gonna add is for people of Washington. So I'm gonna do a name equal sign quotation mark and type people here, close the quotation mark and close that anchor. Control S to save. I can go back here again. So every time I create an anchor, I have to create the link to it just to make sure it works correctly. And again, £, or hashtag people of Washington, Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Here actually pupil. Close the quotation mark, and here's gonna be people of Washington. Close the A. Control S. Now they're gonna be right next to each other. That's okay. We're gonna show you how we can separate those two. Save it. Go back, refresh, and test it. And you can see now people of Washington is actually working. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of them. I'm gonna go to the last one and change it to ID name. Okay. So I just added two more anchors, the economy and industries, and I show you where I add the anchor. This is the economy, front of the heading of the economy, and this is the industries. This is the front of the heading of the industries. The last one I'm actually gonna change it a bit. So instead of adding the name of the state of Washington or just a state, I'm gonna actually add an ID, and it does serve the same way. ID is actually naming that particular tag that I'm using. I'm gonna name it state. Then close it. It works exactly the same way. There are pros and cons, but not much difference between the two. But that's we'll explain that if we run into an issue. But at this time, it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna go back up here and create the exact same hyperlink reference to the state. And it's right here. That's what I love about Notepad++, because it does tell me the anchor I want to add, and here it's gonna say state of Washington. And close the link. I'll save it, then go back to the browser, refresh. So I have all those links right here. The economy works, go back. The industry works, go back, and the state of Washington actually linked to an ID right here was exactly the same way. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add center this particular link and add kind of vertical lines between each link, so kind of separate the two. So it's not as hard as you think. So I'm gonna go back to the Notepad++. I'm gonna center this by adding a style, equal sign, text align, quotation, center. I have to type it, I guess. Then semicolon, close quotation mark, Control S to save. Every time I do something, I go ahead and make sure it works. It's centered. Now I'm gonna add a vertical line between each link, and that is done by the following. So if you hit the shift key and the backslash above the enter on the right side, that will give me the vertical line. So I'm gonna do this again. Is the shift key down and the backslash above the right enter key. I do the same thing right here. I do the same thing right here. I do the same thing right here. And I don't have to do the last one. Control S to save. See how that looks now. Refresh, and you can see now they're separate them. We can do different symbols. That is fine with me as well. So the last thing I'm gonna add is actually I'm gonna add anchor. Go back to the top. Since as you notice, if I go right here, either have to scroll down or have to go back button to actually go where I want to go back to. So I'm gonna add an anchor at the top right here. Maybe at top right here, I can put an ID in here as well. And I'm at the end of each paragraph, after the person reads this, they click on it and it goes back to the top of that page. So just explain to you how that is done. Again, in Notepad, I'm gonna scroll all the way up. Not this headings. Please do not use this one. I'm gonna use this one. I'm gonna add an ID here called top. Save it. At the end of each paragraph, I'm gonna do the following. I'm gonna create a new paragraph. I'm gonna align it to the right. Text align. It's not center, but right. Semicolon, quotation mark, and here is back, and then I create a link to the anchor top, and we're gonna say here back to top. I can't type today, sorry. Then close the anchor, close the link, then close the paragraph. Save it. Let's see if it works, because if that works, I'm just gonna copy this paragraph and do what? And paste it after every paragraph. So go ahead, let's do that. Go to the Notepad++, copy this, Control C to copy, or edit copy. Go to at the end of each paragraph, paste it. Now, this is after the UL, closing the UL, not inside the UL. Then right here we have the table. It's gonna be at the end of the table. Control S to save. Go back to my browser, refresh. I read the economy, back to top. So this is the lecture about using anchors, either ID name to link to it, or an anchor name to link to it. We'll come back and talk about the other hyperlinks.